Views and opinions expressed in this production are those of the individual and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Shooters Nation or our sponsors. Information provided on this show is not a replacement for legal counsel or professional training. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on live shows.
Welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast, the show created for you, the armed citizen. Join our hosts and subject matter experts as we talk about guns and gear, practical training and knowledge, Second Amendment issues, and the firearms culture. Be sure to join us after the show at shootersnation.com and become part of the Shooters Nation.
Hey folks, welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast. I'm your host, David Yancey, coming to you from our studio in Nashville, Tennessee. And joining me from New Hampshire is my co-host extraordinaire, Mark Lancaster. Mark, how's it going, man?
It is going good. It's been a much needed, nice. It seems like every time we talk, I complain about the weather here in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Last week was just brutally hot.
Yeah.
So hot, like high 90s for like 4 days in a row, and just crazy humid. And we're just not used to that kind of heat here in New Hampshire.
Right. Yeah, you got some Tennessee weather.
Think about it. Like 4 months ago, it was negative 30.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you've got some Tennessee weather now. It's just been I think the word is sultry. It's just disgusting. You walk outside and you immediately feel like you need to go back, take a shower. It's just, It's gross. So yeah, I watched it rain today and it was bright sunshine and we're all inside looking at it from the air conditioning going, oh, that's so beautiful. And I was like, oh, it's going to be so steamy out there in just a few minutes. So blah. Yeah. Okay. Well, since we last chatted, man, I went and did a CPR class, which was kind of fun. So I'm kind of gearing up for some more medical training and stuff. So we'll probably talk about that in the future. But tonight, we've actually got a really cool guest. We've got Dan McCalmon from Polymer 80. Thanks to you for bringing him on. So that's gonna be a lot of fun.
No, it's gonna be a good show for you guys. Dan's a great guy. I consider him a good friend. Polymer 80 is a great company that I have the pleasure of doing business with, both selling their product and building my product for their product. And Squared Away Customs, me, Polymer 80 have had a really great relationship for going a little over 2 years now, and super happy to have him on.
Well, we're really glad that you brought him on, Mark, and I think this episode's gonna be great. I know that our listeners who enjoy tinkering with things and building or customizing their own firearms are really gonna enjoy it. And Dan promises that he's got some new product news for us that I know that folks are gonna be excited to hear. I guess we really ought to get over to the interview, and let's do that now. So our guest tonight is Dan McCalmon, Executive Vice President at Polymer 80. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. Pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me on.
Well, it's absolutely our pleasure to have you here. We appreciate your time tonight because obviously a man with the title of Executive Vice President is a busy individual. So we'll just get right into the good stuff. Would you mind telling our listeners a little bit about Polymer 80 and your role there at the company?
Yeah, absolutely. Polymer 80 has been around since 2013. We actually started in the AR 80% receiver world. Our owners, David Borges and Lauren Kelly, came from their own respective backgrounds. David has an aerospace and banking background. Lauren was in home automation, and then he kind of had his own Cerakote shop that he was running, and that's how he and David met. They both obviously have an affinity for firearms. And originally they had the idea to get into the 80% market with aluminum AR receivers. But at the time, the cost of build aluminum was pretty high. So they, through research and discussion, decided, what about the polymer option? And back then, this is again back in 2012, in the infancy of things when they were first meeting, they saw what companies were putting out there with respect to polymer receivers, whether they be 80% or 100% serialized, and the quality just wasn't there. It wasn't a really good receiver. So they set out on a mission to ultimately design and develop a better product for the end user. Lauren happens to be my cousin, and my background myself, I was a firefighter for 16 years, and I also had an affinity for firearms. And when I found out he was doing this, I came to him and I said, "Hey man, how can I get in on this? Let me in. I want to do this." And he said, "Oh yeah, no problem. I've got the perfect job for you. Sales." I looked at him and I said, "Sales?" He goes, Yeah. No, you'll be great. You love talking to people. You'll do just fine. Trust me." So I started with Polymer 80, not too long thereafter in sales, trying to build accounts and, make contacts in the industry. And I got to be honest, I didn't know what I was doing because
Right.
I'd never worked in the firearms industry. I didn't know anybody. But through a lot of trial and error and learning and just sticking with it, we've grown the company and continued to expand from there. We started in California, and then not too long after that ended up moving operations and the company out to Nevada,
Okay.
a little more friendly with respect to taxes and laws and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now as the executive vice president, I work very closely overseeing sales and marketing, as well as working closely with our product development side of the house and our inventory side of the house. So it's a lot of fun, really good relationships, not only with the people that I work with, but with a lot of different people throughout the industry. And it's been a great experience.
Very cool. Well, yeah, I can remember when the industry was full of 80% aluminum lowers for ARs. And that if you were going to do an 80% lower, it was going to be aluminum. And I do remember that the quality wasn't all that great. It was very difficult. And you all have completely turned that industry up on its ear and made it more accessible to the average person who doesn't have a CNC controlled mill or a hand cranked mill of some sort in their garage to do completion of an 80% firearm. So maybe that's a great place to start for some of our listeners who might be new to that concept of an 80% firearm. Dan, can you tell us a little bit about what that means and how that's different from just purchasing an AR-15 lower at your local firearms shop?
Yeah, absolutely. So an 80% firearm is essentially a component that would normally be the serialized component of a firearm that is not complete. So it requires a certain amount of work, whether it be milling or on a drill press, to complete that part so it can accept additional parts to complete the firearm. This is all determined more or less by the ATF, their science and technology branch. There's guidelines specifically for ARs because they have become so popular over the last decade. And now that Polymer 80 has kind of moved into the pistol market of things with our Glock compatible frames, they've made determinations in favor of our product, stating that as it is at the time that it's received by the customer, it's not a firearm. It cannot accept the slide. It can't accept certain components. So the ATF, and we can talk about that more later, but the ATF is the one who set the standard on that. One of the things Polymer 80 did that a lot of companies weren't doing was we thought we want to give the customer all of the tools they need, as much as we can anyways, to complete this product. So we made it a goal, and we've stuck with that, to not only include with the receiver or the frame, the receiver or frame itself, but you get the jig, you get the tooling such as the drill bits required or the end mill, and any supporting components needed to finish that product out so it can start accepting parts. All of our parts are backed with a lifetime warranty, which is awesome. If you ever have an issue, whether it be a manufacturer's defect or something's just not working right,
Mm-hmm.
we have a full-time support team, and you can contact us directly, and we're more than happy to mitigate the issue and to provide warranty-related parts as needed.
I've seen stories on social media of people working on their Polymer 80 frames on the weekend at night, running into an issue and sending an email over and surprisingly getting a response from somebody at Polymer 80 after hours or on the weekend saying, oh yeah, hey, here's what you need to do, da, 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 da. And they said that was fantastic. And, that customer support that you guys offer is incredible, especially considering that for me, having never done this sort of thing before, if I were to sit down with, and I'm pretty handy with tools, but if I were to sit down with, a Polymer 80 product that I had just paid, more than $100 for and said, okay, I'm going to do this, my hands would probably be shaking. I'd be a little bit nervous, and I would be terrified that, well, what if I don't know what I'm doing? And so the ability to reach out to somebody and get that support is incredible. That is really, really important.
Yeah, we recognized that early on. That was one of the staples that we wanted to put in place when David and Lauren developed this company was, everybody's got that story where they've gone into a gun shop and you get that one guy behind the counter who he either doesn't care or he's just wanting to sell you a gun and move you on your way.
Mm-hmm.
But they're less than, polite when it comes to customer service.
Mm-hmm.
And we recognize that was a problem in the industry with certain companies, that people just, they'd buy a product, they might have an issue with it, and they get the runaround. They weren't getting any support with that product. So we knew that getting into this, we were going to need to develop a sense of urgency with keeping up with support related issues, because let's be honest, somebody that buys one of our products, they're essentially they're well within their right, but they're building a homemade gun.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be questions and there's going to need to be answers. And I think because we've done such a good job with support, it's really helped our reputation and our branding as a company that people can rely on to have their back with not only the build process, if they ever have any questions, but just the product in itself. So that's very important to Polymer 80, and it's something that always will be.
I think a big part of you guys really giving them the helpful leg up is by providing the jig, all of the drill bits, the end mill, and any tooling that you need to essentially complete the process. And I think that really is, it's very surprising to people when you open the box and they see it comes with all of this.
Yeah, everything's there,
yep,
right? Yeah,
it comes with everything.
Yeah, yeah. And Dan, I don't mean to imply that y'all's support is 24/7. I don't know if it is or not. I think that the thing that really impressed me about that was that the individual account that I was reading, the guy even said, I was not expecting an answer until Monday morning. And it just so happened that somebody was checking their email at your company over the weekend. And instead of just putting it off, they wrote back and said, oh yeah, here's what you need to do. And then they provided the answer. And he said, it was really cool for him as a consumer to see that somebody at your company was as jazzed about that as he was to get it put together.
We actually, it's kind of funny because, being I guess still a small company in comparison to some of the larger, firearms companies out there, with all of our growth, we still are a small company, and it's not out of the ordinary that a customer might get a phone call or an email from our CEO, David Borges, or COO, Lauren Kelly, or even myself. I don't know how they get our contact information, but every once in a while we get support calls ourselves on our personal lines.
Oh yeah.
And at the end of the day, we don't look at it as a nuisance or like, oh man, why isn't this guy calling support? We look at it as, this is an opportunity to help a customer out, and we're happy to do so. And that happens from time to time, and that's not a big deal. It's at the end of the day, it's about the customer satisfaction and making sure that they not only are comfortable with the product they bought, but they know, like I mentioned earlier, that Polymer 80's got their back, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure they're satisfied with their product.
Well, so I have a question about you guys before I get into more about the firearm frames and such, the components themselves. But just going back to the genesis of Polymer 80, the company, you said that the founders came from aerospace, banking, home automation, those sorts of industries. Did any of those things make it easier for them to get into this business, or was it all learn as you go, baptism by fire? And I ask that because a common thread that I've had with several people that I've spoken with along the way here is that there are a lot of folks that dream of someday being their own boss, and they all think, man, it'd be great to be in the firearms industry. And I think a lot of them instinctively think it'd be wonderful to own a gun store. And having worked retail myself in the past, I can tell you, Probably not. Right. You know, there's a lot more things that I think that'd be more fun than working at a gun store, even though it sounds really cool. But a few of them have said, yeah, I would love to invent a thing. What could those guys tell us if they were here about starting a company on their own? What does looking back, do they say, yeah, this is where we thought we would be? Or do they look back and think, wow, we are so fortunate and this has exceeded our expectations?
I would think that they would say that they had a plan and a goal to get where Polymer is at today, but nobody would have foreseen us getting there as quickly as we got.
Right.
In the last 5 years. We've experienced exponential growth beyond our wildest expectations. I think both David and Lauren, with their respective backgrounds, found that there were challenges involved in building this company. But I think they would both agree that when it comes to building a company like this, there's risk involved, and you have to be willing to accept that risk to obtain the reward. And it hasn't been without struggle. There's been many a times where we've dealt with struggle in one fashion or another, through product development or other things that have come up. But it's just a matter of not only being thankful for the opportunity to be in the business that we're in and work in the industry that we're in, but just to keep your head to the ground and keep plugging away and charging forward and knowing that what we're doing is not only supporting the Second Amendment and meeting a need for customers out there, but it's such a privilege to be able to be in a capitalist environment and to work in the industry that we're in. So
I have a question, and this does kind of come back full circle to where we were a minute ago. Obviously, the firearms industry is very heavily regulated, and I'm friends with folks that own gun stores, and a few of them have really just started they started their business to do FFL transfers, and against maybe their own better judgment, they do that from their homes. And so I'm sure that, as you know, when you enter into a firearms related business, you invite the ATF into your space. And they said, we wish that we hadn't done that from our home, because essentially the ATF can come, inspect our home where we keep the safe and things like that anytime that they want to. They generally, the agents are very cordial about it, and they give them a little bit of advance notice. But for you all, and obviously you have an industrial site that you work out of in Nevada, but how has it been working with the government on this stuff? How do they look at the 80% firearm industry? I guess I'll just leave it with that. How is that?
For us, in the beginning, it was interesting. We actually had the ATF visit our facility in California, where we were initially located. And when I say visited, I mean, it was the guys in tack gear and masks.
Oh, okay.
Rifle slung and ready to kick the door in if they needed to be, which didn't result in any confiscation of product or criminal charges or anything like that. I'm not sure why they came with such a heavy presence. But ultimately they looked around and, they were welcomed in, to the extent that, just trying to figure out what they were doing. And basically they said, this is all part of a bigger issue, whatever. Okay. So they went about their way, but our products were, this was back in, I believe 2014, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
It resulted in a few changes that we made to further protect ourselves and our company with respect to our product line at the time, which was basically just the AR-15 low receiver that we call the G150. But since then, in moving to Nevada, it's interesting because the agent in Nevada that has talked to us a few times seems to be a little more, I don't want to say laid back, but just easygoing, like nothing we're doing. All of our products have letters of determination, like I mentioned earlier, from the science technology branch. And we're not violating any kind of federal or state laws or statutes or anything. So they seem to be, as long as we're doing what we're supposed to be doing and we're not wandering outside of the boundaries of what's allowed and what's not allowed for with respect to firearms or firearms components, they're actually a little easier to work with than people might suspect.
Right.
So.
Right.
So Squared Away Customs were an 07 FFL and an SOT, and I had a ATF agent inspection type of thing happen. And one of my questions to him is like, what do you think about these? And I explained to him about Polymer 80, which he of course knew about. And he said, well, Mark, it's pretty simple. It's not a gun. I don't care.
Huh. It's an interesting perspective, but it's nice to hear that. Yeah. Well, I definitely don't want to get put you in a position where you say something that puts you on the ATF's bad side. But I think so many people, and especially consumers that might be considering this, look at that and think, oh, that's kind of scary because it's a firearm, but it's not. And in reality, it's not. You're buying an item that is just a plastic construct that you're going to complete yourself, and then you manufacture a firearm. But perhaps that's a good way of asking this question. It's legal, right? And that's what most of the consumers that are not familiar with this, I would imagine, ask. You mean this is legal? I can do this, and it's on the up and up? And it seems like obviously the answer is yes.
100% yes.
Okay.
Federal law and ATF ruling allows for and again, this is at the federal level, and we can talk about different states in a bit.
Okay.
But federal law allows for, ATF ruling allows for the manufacture of a homemade firearm, so long as it's, quote, not more than 80% complete. And that's where the whole 80% receiver, 80% frame nomenclature comes from. Of course, ATF is the one, like we talked about earlier, who determines what is 80% complete and what's not.
Right.
But as long as the beginning product is not more than 80% complete, it does not have to have a serial number. You don't have to do any of the documentation or paperwork at the time of purchase.
Well, so in reality, a person could sit down if they had the equipment and the resources and the knowledge to do this. They could sit down with a raw hunk of aluminum or plastic or anything else and fashion a firearm out of it, and they would be 100% legal to do so. Mm-hmm. What the advantage is here is that you guys have done all the R&D. You've done the molds. You've done the hard work. Right. You've given them a product that meets the 80% requirement that the ATF has. I don't want to say ruled on, because they're not a legislative organization, but they do write letters of determination to say this is what we feel falls into these criteria. But the ATF has said this product that Polymer 80 makes falls within this criteria. It's perfectly legal, and you can purchase this, Joe consumer, and finish out the product without having to do all the grunt work that Polymer 80, the company, has done. So you've given them the fast track to get this thing done, and they're building their own gun, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually seen, believe it or not, back in the day, I don't know if they still exist, but I've actually seen, I think it was called a 30% receiver, where and on an 80% AR-15 receiver, just for those that don't know, mm-hmm. It's generally the fire control pocket that needs to be milled out, mm-hmm. as well as the safety selector, trigger, and hammer pinhole. On this particular 30% receiver, it was the fire control pocket, the buffer tube housing hole needed to be drilled and threaded, as well as the mag well needed to be milled out. And I thought, I don't have a CNC machine, so no, it's not my cup of tea.
Yeah, here's your 0% lower, Joe consumer. It's a block of aluminum. That's
best of luck.
I've actually read stories. Where folks have taken flathead shovels, and tempered them, hammered them, done whatever they needed to do to build an AK receiver.
I was going to say, the AK or a high point. So,
Right.
all the High Point owners are now very angry with me. That's all right. If you were listening to this, you were probably borrowing the iPhone that you were listening to it on. So,
hopefully we convert them to Polymer 80.
Terrible, right? Absolutely. Mark, you're leaning in, man. It looks like you got a thought.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit more intimidated about the AR lowers than the pistol lowers. I personally haven't done any of the AR lowers, and I've done a ton of the pistol lowers. Do you think that they're a little bit more of a challenge to somebody that doesn't have the higher end equipment to do that kind of thing, or is it just as easy? Do you think, Dan?
Generally, what I tell folks is that a lot of it kind of comes back to your mechanical abilities. If you've worked with power tools, if you've worked with, specifically in this case, a drill press, and you have the temperament, the patience to take your time and stick with it, it shouldn't be too challenging. For somebody who's never done it before, it's not an insurmountable, thing to mill out an 80% lower. And that's where our product, being a polymer receiver, maybe over, say, an aluminum receiver. I've milled out an aluminum receiver before myself, and for me, it wasn't hard, but it's very time consuming. It took me 6 hours because obviously you're milling out metal on a drill press, and the drill press is time consuming, compared to a mill. Right. Whereas if you're doing a polymer receiver, I think what most people find, especially those with any aversions to getting into it and screwing it up, people find that while the material itself, it's a nylon-based material with a specific amount of fiberglass that I can't talk about, fill, is very durable and strong. Mm-hmm. It actually mills very easily. Okay. It cuts you with the included end mill that we give you. And then once they get into that process, is actually not as bad as they thought. And generally speaking, as long as people take their time with the process and they don't get in a rush and they follow the instructions, which can be found on our website, polymer80.com, they're generally successful with it. What's great about Polymer 80, though, is we understand. There's people out there that have never done something like this, mm-hmm. and we're more than happy to offer people a discount. We call it a second chance discount, where they got into the milling procedure on an AR-15, and the end mill caught and it jumped around on them. Something went crazy, and they messed up their lower, and they're pretty upset. What we're happy to do, especially for those folks that are willing to say, yeah, it's my fault, is offer them a pretty nice discount on a new kit. And it gets you a brand new lower, brand new jig, brand new set of bits and everything.
Well, and the added advantages, since it's an 80% and it's not serialized, it's not like they're having to pay the state background check and the transfer fee and all that other, nonsense. It just goes straight to them. So that's fantastic. Right. Let me ask. Right. So what tools are required for this sort of thing? Are these tools that the average person has or can get access to easily and cheaply? What does that really look like for a consumer?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. All of our products are designed with in mind to be done on a drill press with an XY cross-axis type vise mounted to the drill press table. That's why we give you the drill bits. That's why we give you the end mill. That being said, the AR receiver and our 308 receiver, those are pretty much, you pretty much have to do that on a drill press. I've heard people can use a router, but I don't know how well the routers would work with our jigs. Our jigs are specific to our frames and receivers. With the pistol frames, however, it is faster to do it on a drill press with respect to removing the top bars off the frame. However, I've heard every possible way you can imagine for people to finish those things out. Dremel tools and the works, you name it. But yeah, with respect to our instructions on our website and the tooling provided, everything is intended to be utilized with the drill press.
That's awesome. Well, I'd say that most folks either know somebody that has it if they don't have it themselves, or the little bit of research I did, there was a guy that said, hey, look, I did this and I spent not a whole lot of money going to Harbor Freight or some other, place like that sells fairly inexpensive tools. And I put together everything I needed to do this. And, he said, now that I've bought that, I'm going to do a bunch more of them. So, that's pretty slick when you think about it.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
that's the other component. That's the other component is the tooling, the drill press, where to find one if you don't have one. You mentioned Harbor Freight, which is a great option, Northern Tool.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a super high speed, low drag style drill press. You can get, as long as it's capable of roughly, I would say, anywhere between 2,400 and 3,600 RPM. It doesn't matter if it's belt drive or a different style drill press. It'll definitely cut through the polymer without any issues. And again, it's just a matter of patience.
And like you said, you guys provide that in-mill tool, the bit that you chock into the press, the drill press, or the drill, or the CNC machine to do the cutting. Mark, right. I know you've said that you've done them with a cordless drill on the pistols, right? On the pistol frames, you've done a cordless drill and a Dremel and.
I've not done a cordless drill.
Oh, have you not?
But
Okay.
I have witnessed Dan do it with a cordless drill.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Yeah. Well,
specific to the pistol frame, since you brought it up, one of the things we outline in the instructions is that when you're drilling, whether you're working on an AR receiver or a pistol frame, we advocate that you don't use a drill press for the pinholes, because what ends up happening on a drill press is the drill bit goes where the drill press wants it to go, not where you want it to go. And then you're going to have alignment issues with your pins. Gotcha. Whereas if you line up, if you put it in a jig, put it in a vise, a bench vise, and just have a hand drill, and you drill one side at a time, obviously you don't go all the way through. It'll come out much better.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to try this at some point. Mark's been trying to talk me into this for a very long while. I can't. How many episodes have we done that you've probably held up a Polymer 80? You've probably got one on your desk. If you keep looking down, I see it. But anyway, yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah. But I know he's held these things up several times and just taunts me with it. Like this thing, it's got everything that in the pistol frame, especially things that I see people send their frames out, their stock Glock frames out and spend a lot of money on to have beaver tails added and reliefs and textures and the thumb ledge, the accelerator pedal as they call it on the forward part of the frame and all that stuff. You guys have baked that in, it seems like, on your pistol lowers. And if I'm not mistaken, you guys have a pistol lower that doesn't even have a texture on it, because that there are people that want to send them out and have somebody take do the artistry of stippling and applying a texture and all that stuff too. So it's inevitable. I'm going to do this sooner or later. I've just got to get the courage to do it.
Yeah. Speaking to that, our VP of product, Mike Overage, he had a phenomenal idea to develop the pistol frame series with, as you mentioned, a blank texture and a textured grip. We call the blank texture the Ready Mod. It's a trademark that we came up with, essentially because it's ready to be modded right out of the box. So many people do take their, like you mentioned, their Glock frame or what have you, and they send it off to a stipple shop, and that shop has to spend a lot of time prepping by removing finger grooves or removing existing texture. And Mike had it in mind to give that customer something that was very easy, ready out of the box to be stippled. So that's where that concept had come from.
I bet he is a hero among the stippling industry, because you see these guys taking factory frames and they're either dremeling it down or sanding it down. And I suspect that's the longest part of the work is the prep to get that frame ready. And if y'all are sending them a frame that is the Ready Mod with the flat sides and no texture and just, Hey, Mr. Stipple guy, this is the thing created with you in mind. That's phenomenal. We're probably coming up on a midpoint break, which is just insane to even think of, because this is moving by so quickly. But I guess for the next few minutes, let's just say we got about 5 minutes left, Dan. Can you kind of walk us through what you guys have as far as product line goes? And maybe, because I know y'all offer a bunch of stuff. I'm sitting here looking at your website right now, but let's think about AR-15 lowers and then the pistol frames. What do you all offer in the AR platform in particular? And then what do you offer in the pistol frame?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the AR platform, we have what we would call our legacy product. It's essentially our first AR design, which is the G150. It's a basic mil-spec design, nothing terribly fancy. Again, it's an 80%er. We also have a second AR receiver we just came out with a few months back. We call it the RL556V3. Kind of a beefier, slightly different aesthetic, but it you put it in your hand and it feels beefier. With respect to the durability of the G150, while we have 100% faith and confidence in that product, and that you're not going to experience any failures or issues with it, there's still that mindset people have as it relates to polymer being involved in a lower receiver for an AR-15. So we set out to design a slightly beefier product that could hopefully alleviate some of those concerns. So we have two different AR designs, and then we have a 308 lower. It's a DPMS compatible 308, 80% polymer lower. And when we rolled out with it again, there was a lot of aversion to it. People thought, how could you build a completely polymer lower in a big bore rifle?
Right. Yeah.
But truth be told, it does really well for us. People that have it seem to love it, and it's holding up well. Well, we don't really see on that product specifically a lot of warranty related type issues. So that's kind of rounds out the AR side of things. We do sell lower parts kits for the AR-15 as well as 308.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a lot of accessories on that end, but that is something we hope to expand on in the future.
Okay.
Rolling into the pistol side of the market, we have three pistol variants. We have the PF940C, which is your Glock 19 or Glock 23 variant pistol.
Okay.
That's a Gen 3 compatible frame, so it accepts Gen 3 components. We have the PF940V2, which would be your Glock 17 or your Glock 22.
Okay.
And then we have the PF940SC, which is a new product for 2018. It's a subcompact, so that would be compatible with your Gen 3 Glock 26 or Glock 27 components.
Very cool. Well, so one of the questions that a listener had asked, and I'll go ahead and throw this in right now. They said that they noticed that with Gen 5, Glock has gone back to the 2-pin frame. And they're asking, are you guys going to follow suit with that? Because with the Gen 3, obviously we're looking at a 3-pin frame. So does that make any difference to y'all at all? Or is that just a purely Glock decision that works for Glock, but doesn't necessarily translate to any other part of the industry?
Right now, it doesn't, not so much. And we get a lot of questions all the time from folks about, are you going to make a Gen 4 compatible frame? What about Gen 5s now that those are coming out onto the market?
Mm-hmm.
And the easy answer is that as of right now, no, simply because the Gen 3 products from Glock are no longer under patent.
Okay.
All of their Gen 4 and Gen 5 items are. So as an effort to not ruffle the feathers of anybody and to bring any undue attention on ourselves,
mm-hmm.
We generally like to do our due diligence with respect to, are we going to violate any potential patents or copyrights, trademarks, or anything
Sure.
on anybody's product that we're making something that is compatible with.
Gotcha.
So as it stands right now, we're looking at the Gen 3 3-pin design. Ours, we like to call it the 4-pin because ours has a 4th pin that incorporates the locking block rail system, and we can certainly talk more specifics about the pistol frames as when we come back.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so just for the little bit of time that I've got left here, one of the questions that we had for you, and Mark, I think you added this. So, about the relationship with Glock. Do you want to take a swing at that one, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, we've never had this conversation in all the times we spoke, but I'm curious. I mean, did you guys get any blowback in any way, shape, or form from Glock, or has it been like a supportive relationship, or how does that all work out?
We haven't had any issues with Glock. No, we haven't had any blowback from them. But I wouldn't even say there's any relationship there. If there is a relationship, it's been at trade shows such as SHOT or the NRA show or some of the bigger venues. And it's basically a couple of the guys from the Glock booth who get a break from their booths are out circulating through the show, and they stop by our booth and they see our product. And surprisingly enough, the response has been positive. They've told us, wow, this is really cool. You guys did a great job with the product. Right on. And so with that respect, like I said, we haven't had any communication from them or anything negative, for sure.
Right. So it's not like a Glock Polymer 80 West Side story where at SHOT Show y'all line up against each other and start snapping and dancing back and forth in a choreographed fight or anything like that.
Hopefully we don't have any dance offs. I'm not a good dancer.
That was specifically weird, wasn't it? Man, I am. It's late in the evening and I'm still chugging coffee. So it's kind of like a Hunter S. Thompson novel from this point forward. There's no telling where this is going to go, but
weird's okay. I'm used to it.
Right. Okay. Well, so I guess we are roughly at a point to take a break. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to give you just something to think about while we break, and then we can come back with our game faces on. I really would like to talk a little bit more about the restrictions from the government and how maybe the different states look at what an 80% firearm is. If you want to talk about that, that'd be great, because I think our listening base, we're pretty fortunate. We've got listeners all over the country, and I think we've got some that are behind enemy lines in terrible states like California. I say terrible. I mean, they've just got terrible governments, but California is a beautiful state. Y'all just need a clean house in your government, in Illinois and stuff. And, I'm wondering how they treat this. And also, I think, there's been some really cool developments over the past 24 hours as relates to 3D printed guns and stuff and ITAR restrictions. And maybe we can talk about that if you're game. So if that's cool with you, we'll take a break and we'll come back and swing at those.
Sounds good.
Okay, awesome. Well, folks, again, we're here with Dan McCalmon from Polymer 80. We're going to pick his brain a little bit more when we come back, and we hope that you'll stick around with us. We'll be back here in just a few minutes.
Hey folks, David here. By now, regular listeners of the show are well acquainted with Mark and our friends over at Squared Away Customs. You already know that they are a manufacturer of high-quality custom Kydex holsters and carry gear for civilians, military, and law enforcement. But what you might not know is that Squared Away Customs is also your one-stop source for weapon-mounted lights and other firearms accessories. Mark, Corey, and the gang are now also stocking dealer for Polymer 80 frames and slides, and of course, have holsters to fit. What is Polymer 80, you ask? They are 80% complete polymer frames that you finish out with Glock pistol components. Because you're building it, there's no serial number, no FFL required, and no registration needed. It's a great way to build a custom Glock-style pistol of your own creation. Squared Away Customs offers Polymer 80 frames compatible with Glock model 17, 19, 22, 23, 26, 27, 34, and 35 Generation 3 components. They come in 2 different grip styles and include features like an extended beaver tail, double undercut trigger guard, and a thumb ledge already built in. So, if you're looking for the next level of customization and performance from the Glock platform, head over to squaredawaycustoms.com and check out their Polymer 80 accessories and, of course, their Squared Away Customs Polymer 80 custom holsters today.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is David. I'm here with Mark, and we have Dan McCalmon, Executive Vice President at Polymer 80, with us again tonight. Dan, thanks for joining us, and thanks for sticking through the break with us. Before we broke, I said that I really wanted to come back and talk a little bit more about the government side of things and restrictions. So, in particular, we've had some of our listeners that, again, our listening base, we're pretty fortunate, is nationwide. But so we have folks from different states. We have some folks that are in pretty free, easygoing states that don't have a whole lot of restrictions on gun owners. And then we have others that are a little bit backwards. And that brought to mind for me How do the states look at 80% firearms? So are there any states that regulate your product more stringently than the Fed does, or is that not really a thing?
No, unfortunately there is. Like we talked about in the first half, on the federal level, it's as long as the product meets the 80% definition set forth by the ATF, you're well within your right to buy that product, finish it at home, and build your firearm. The only requirement beyond that is if you were to ever sell the firearm after you've finished it out or give it away, you would have to have it serialized at that point. But again, going back to your question about the state level, unfortunately, that's where, the more liberal states, California, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Illinois, so on, have their own regulations. And what we generally do is encourage the customers to always seek out their own state laws and regulations. It's a lot of work for us to try and keep up with every single state and what they say is allowed for and what's not. Specifically, the hot topic of late was the state of California. And as of, I forget the date here in July, but as of recently here in July, it basically made it to where if you buy an 80% product, you can do that, but you basically have to get a serial number applied to it. And you have to have it registered through the state Department of Justice, not at the federal level, but at the state level.
Wow.
New Jersey, kind of one of those quieter things that not a lot of people know about. I don't know if it's because it's a smaller state or they just don't make national headlines as much as California does, but in New Jersey, they actually have a law that says to complete an 80% lower, you actually have to be an FFL holder to be able to manufacture a firearm.
No kidding.
So in New Jersey, unfortunately, the individual customer, the guy at home that wants to build one of our products can't, because if he doesn't have that FFL, they're going to come down on him for that. So,
oh my.
The big thing to take away from all that is, like I said, if you live in any given state, whether it be Texas or California or somewhere in between, by all means, always understand your state laws and regulations as it relates to 80%ers. And if you don't like those laws, then write your local politician.
Yeah.
Move.
Or move. Yeah, Mark. Yeah. I've been to California several times. Beautiful state. The people there, by and large, just like anywhere else, super friendly. I've unashamedly said, I honestly think that the Bay Area is really cool. I've been out there several times for business, but I wouldn't want to move to California because of the ridiculous gun laws. And just like New Jersey, I know that there are beautiful parts of the state, but I couldn't live there. I feel for anybody that lives in those places and has to deal with gun laws. I hope that if you're there, I hope that you try to change the laws. But if you move, I absolutely know why you would. So it's, oh, wow, that's disheartening. But I guess it's good to go into that with your eyes wide open and know that what you're getting into in those states as a consumer. And I'm sure they deal with other more ridiculous draconian aspects of firearms law. So God bless them. So the other thing that I wanted to ask about before I hand over to Mark, and I know he's got a question that involving the media in particular, but one thing in the media the past 24 hours was the government's decision, and I don't know if you've seen this or not, so I apologize if I'm putting you on the spot, but the government decided that they would not block Defense Distributed, a website, from distributing 3D printed gun patterns. And that by doing so, they said that, well, that doesn't violate ITAR restrictions. And I'm wondering, does that change the game for Polymer 80 at all? Does that widen your world or shrink it or open the door for new opportunities? What does that do for you guys, if anything?
Personally, on a personal level, I think it's great. And my congratulations to Defense Distributed and those guys out there for that win, because I think it's a very important win, not just for them, but for everybody with respect to the First and Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. I think it sets a pretty good standard and I'm glad that the court sided in their favor. I can't speak for Polymer 80 as a whole on that subject matter, just because it's not something we talk about. We're so busy with the internal workings and development opportunities of our company that we don't really spend a whole lot of time talking about the political side of what's going on in the industry. So
Sure.
It's not something we've talked about at all at this point.
Okay.
Does that change anything for Polymer 80? I don't know. I think with respect to the school shooting that happened earlier in the year, and then the renewed fight against bump stocks, which, whatever, I think it's certainly an infringement on Second Amendment rights, especially that seeing that the bump stocks were previously approved by the ATF. With respect to, is it a machine gun? Is it not? But I think it all does have an effect on the big picture of what we're trying to do in Polymer 80. And with respect to determination letters in the industry, I know, as an example, there's another company out there that's got an 80% frame that they're coming out with, and they have yet to receive their determination letter. That could be because the bump stock issue is being reviewed, and now the ATFs may be thinking maybe we should look closer at the 80%ers. I don't know. That's just my speculation on the matter. So I can't say for sure if that's going to complicate things or make things easier on Polymer 80. But what I do know is that it's certainly not going to hinder us from developing and moving as quickly as we can to provide new products that the customers ask us for. We're very engaged with our customers through social media on Instagram and Facebook, and we listen to them and we take their suggestions into account in our development of new products.
I want to make sure that before we conclude tonight, we get you to pass along the various ways that people can connect with you on social media and that sort of thing. That way, if they're not already following Polymer 80, they can do so. But one of the listeners had actually asked today, he heard that I was doing this. He's like, oh, dude, you've totally got to ask them if this change for defense distributed in the ruling will open the door for you all to offer additional product lines to capitalize on that increased popularity of 3D printing. And I don't know a whole heck of a lot about 3D printing. I know that it's becoming a little bit more mainstream and you can even buy these things off Amazon, but without divulging anything strategic that would, give competitors an advantage on you guys, can you say whether or not 3D printing in the consumer's hands is something that you all are even looking at or gearing up for, or is that just kind of still too far off in the future tech-wise to bank on it very much?
No, 3D printing firearms products is not something we're currently looking at. I can definitely tell you that. That's more specific to the guys at Defense Distributed. All of our products are injection molded products. So, there's a lot of R&D, development, design work, and such that goes into the development of our products. We don't have any intentions at this point of doing anything with respect to this 3D printing world.
Gotcha. Okay. Mark, you had a question about the media. I'll let you jump on that one.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't but once seen the actual name Polymer 80 in the media. And I'm just wondering if you've received more and I just haven't seen it, or if you've gotten any bad press, or has any of that been happening regarding like the liberal media jumping on the quote unquote ghost guns or whatever they want to call them. Are you guys getting any blowback like that?
Not specifically directed at us. It's I don't want to make light of any kind of crime that was ever committed with any kind of firearm, whether it be 80% or not. But at the same respect, it's interesting and slightly comical to us sometimes in that we'll see a news report, or you'll see an internet news report on quote ghost guns, or they're sweeping the nation, or so many people are doing bad things with them, and it's never been specific to this Polymer 80 product did this,
Right.
But at the same time, it's kind of like free marketing in that our product is being put out there, and we all know, and our customer base knows that that's a polymer-rated product. And again, that's not trying to make light of whatever situation the product is being shown in by any stretch. But no, there hasn't been any backlash specific to polymer-rated from the media or in any criminal investigation level. But our products, we have seen them in various reports of, this happened, that happened, a crime was committed, whatever. That's not to say that bad guys are going out there and using 80%ers to commit crimes, because there's so many crimes committed with firearms that are legitimate.
Oh, sure.
They're serialized, and I don't know how to further describe it other than it is what it is. Bad people are going to do bad things.
Oh, sure.
And
Well,
no amount of regulation is going to prevent that.
Right.
And God bless the Second Amendment, because it allows good guys to be able to do good things to stop bad guys. And that's what it comes down to. I think I've had people ask me personally, friends or family, what do you think needs to be done to stop these school shootings? What do you think needs to be done to stop, quote, violence or whatever? And I tell them, at the end of the day, you're never going to stop it. People have been killing people since the beginning of time. There's bad people in the world, and we have not only the right, because of the Second Amendment, but the obligation as sons and daughters and husbands and wives and brothers and sisters, and you name it, to not only arm ourselves appropriately for self-defense purposes, but to seek out the proper training, have the correct mindset, and the proper amount of skills to effectively employ that self-defense. So
sure.
I know I kind of rambled on that one. I'm sorry about that.
No. I mean, and also to have access to the tools to do it, whether the tool be something that you buy that's serialized, and in a gun store, or a tool that you decide to construct on your own using something like this, or just again that raw hunk of metal that you fashion into an implement, a firearm or a blade or whatever. And Dan, really, you were talking about the fact that it doesn't matter what you see on the news, because Lord knows, anytime that it seems like the media and their very biased agenda that is not very hard to see, something bad happens, they're gonna show the pictures of whatever on the screen, and half the time you find out that after the fact it was a shotgun used, but the media didn't stop. That didn't stop them from putting an AR-15 on the 6 o'clock news or whatever to talk about it. We see accounts of police cars being broken into fairly regularly, and firearms stolen out of the police car. And it's like, well, hey,
right.
You want to restrict it so that only the police can have firearms. Guess what? They get stolen from as well. It just maybe isn't as widely publicized. So, dangerous freedom. We can have dangerous freedom, or we can have peaceful servitude. And much like our forefathers, I tend to choose dangerous freedom any day. So, I guess good segue unintentionally, but are there any states that allow you more freedom with a polymer 80 or an 80% firearm than the Fed does? And when I ask that, I'm thinking about the 10th Amendment stuff here. I think, what was it, Mark? You maybe, was it like Montana or something like that was talking about suppressors, and they said, as far as we're concerned, you can build them and use them all the time here as long as they stay inside the state. And I'm sure the Fed looked at that and said, not so fast. But I don't know, Dan, are you familiar with any states that look at polymer 80% lower or 80% firearms and say, in our state, not only do you get to enjoy what the Fed says you can enjoy, but you also get to enjoy XYZ in addition to that? Or am I crazy? That may be a complete tangent that's just really far off.
Yeah, I don't know of any states that have that outlook on 80%ers. Like you mentioned, with respect to the suppressors in Montana.
Mm-hmm.
I think already as it is at the federal level, it's a pretty easy process. Like I said, it doesn't require a serial number. It doesn't require any type of FFL transaction. And that's coming from the ATF,
Sure.
which I know a lot of folks have their own aversions to, because, you know, nobody wants to wait 8 months for a suppressor, or,
Yeah.
you know, why do I have to take an SBR and get a special stamp for it? It's kind of silly.
Right. Yeah.
That being said, back to the original question, I don't know of any states that have even less restrictions. Just because at the federal level they're not restricted.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, I guess the only thing that I was thinking as I formulated that question, and I'll raise my hand and admit I put that stupid question in the notes. I think when I was writing that, I hadn't had my first cup of coffee yet, but I was probably thinking, well, what about the sale, the transfer of these things? Because like you said earlier, one of the restrictions on it is you can build this for yourself, but if you're going to sell it to somebody else later, let's say you build a really cool Glock pattern pistol off of a Polymer 80 lower, and Mark's held up some before on camera that I looked at and thought, oh man, yeah, that'd be nice. But Mark can't sell that to me unless he registers it and then transfers it to me. I was just thinking, are there any states that they don't even have that requirement? And that's probably a pipe dream.
I think if anything, it sometimes works against companies like Polymer 80, like our company, or other companies that are in the 80% world.
Sure.
In that there's a lot of states that are fantastic states for Second Amendment rights.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee, my home state now, being one of them. Texas is great. You know, obviously a lot of the southern states. New Hampshire.
Yeah, I was gonna say Mark's gonna plug New Hampshire.
Don't know anybody that lives there, but whatever.
Yeah.
But they, you know, it's almost like it's not an uphill battle, but it's certainly something that we'd like to try and educate those folks that live in those states about as it relates to 80%ers, because, you know, they don't make you give your firstborn child when you buy a firearm like they do, say, in California.
Right.
So it's relatively easy. You know, you go through the background check process and you buy a firearm and you get to take it home right then and there. There's no silly waiting period or, you know, restrictions or anything like that.
Right.
So for us in the 80% industry, a lot of the time we get the question of why. You know, why would I buy your product?
Sure.
Why would I buy an 80%er when it's just as easy to buy a serialized gun? So that's something that we generally meet head on, I think, with very justifiable answers to the public. And usually it revolves around, you know, do you like to work on your guns? Do you like to customize your guns? Have you ever thought about, you know, building something from the ground up? It's kind of like the same concept, the guy who likes to tinker on cars and he likes to build cars in his garage at home kind of thing. Only apply it to firearms.
Mm-hmm.
So.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. Are there any markets in particular that the Polymer 80 or 80% firearm appeals to more than others? Like, you know, I'm thinking about competitive shooters and you know, like you said, the tinkerers and the serious hobbyists. But if you were to say that you know, the 80% industry has a certain demographic that you're going after, you know, are we talking about the full custom gun nerds like me, or are they, you know, who's your typical consumer, or is it just a spectrum?
You know, it's kind of evolved since we got started. Initially with the AR platform in the beginning, it was two different demographics. It was on one side you had the amateur gunsmith, if you will, the guy who liked to build it himself, build his, like me, for example. I like to build my rifles. I don't think I own a production rifle. Mm-hmm. My rifles that I've built are all piecemeal together with different various custom parts that I've selected through research. So there's that demographic that we speak to, the builder market. Then there's the, I don't want the government to know what I have.
Sure.
And they're well within the right to do that, based on federal law. Demographic. So those are kind of the two barrier to entries that we spoke to. And then as things developed and our product development line really kicked up and our product line grew, we're now kind of more speaking to the customization world, especially with the pistol frames, because really in the last several years, the AR market, while there's a plethora of options out there on what you can do with an AR,
yeah,
and now even in the 9mm carbine world, the Glock customization market has really kind of taken the place of the AR customization world.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of led us the direction of doing the pistol frames we have, because we were looking at options and what to do next on product development. You know, it's kind of that innovator die mindset. And we said, we were talking about doing a 1911. I'll be honest. We were looking at going that route.
I almost
80% 1911s out there. Yeah.
Mark is probably, he's right now on camera. He's doing the twirling his finger around his ear like you're crazy, right? But
disgusting.
We had this conversation at work today, Dan. I'm fortunate to work with a bunch of gun guys in a completely non-related industry, and you know, we're just all enthusiasts. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, should I ask them about a Polymer 1911? And the fact that you said that is just great. So there you go. Dana, you're listening. we weren't nuts, man. We weren't nuts. All right, Dan. Sorry. Keep going.
No, it was an option on the table. But like I said, a lot of companies were doing that. And our owners, Dave and Lauren, are very much, they want to be first to the market kind of guys with new innovative products.
Okay.
So we stopped and looked at what people were doing. I think somebody posed the question of, what is the most popular handgun in the world? A Glock.
Right.
And Glocks they're everywhere. And so we said, nobody's done a Glock 80% pistol frame, compatible pistol frame. There's custom slides out there. There's RMR sights now for them. There's barrels. There's all kinds of accessories for a Glock, custom triggers, you name it. But nobody was doing a frame. And that product, our initial product, which was the PF940 V1, is what really kind of propelled us in the direction that we're headed right now on the pistol series and the pistol side of the house. And it's been a great ride.
Well, I think it's worth pointing out that you all are hobbyists and firearms enthusiasts yourselves. You know, you mentioned that at the very beginning of the episode, and it looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, but it looks like you've kind of sat down and said, what would we buy if we were going to buy something? And then you've built that, and that's cool. You know, it's not fueled from, I see this a lot. Let me step back for just a second and recalibrate. I see this a lot where, especially over the past few years, especially during the Obama presidency, a lot of gun shops popped up in Middle Tennessee that were run by investment groups because they wanted to cash in on it. And you could tell that their heart and soul weren't in it. They were looking at that as a check. They wanted to drop money in the bank. The shops that are still around today, after, you know, the retail market kind of fizzled, are the ones that were passionate about it and were smart. But, you know, their hearts were in it. They were gun guys from the start. And when I look at what y'all are doing, y'all are gun guys that just happen to own a really cool industry or a really cool business inside the industry making gun stuff. So, you know, I'll just leave it at that. I think that, you know, what I see here is passion to produce a really cool product that you all would buy even if you didn't own the company.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I have no problem saying this. My EDC gun is a PF940C. I love it to death. It's a cobalt frame. It's got our gray anodized aluminum magwell. It's got our gray DLC slide on it. It's got our threaded fluted DLC black barrel in it. It's a phenomenal little gun. And I personally was never a Glock guy. I didn't like the way they felt.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like the way it shot. I was always an H&K fanboy, as they're referred to, because I've got a complement of various different H&Ks, and I love H&Ks, and in my opinion, they're tack drivers. They're great handguns.
Sure.
But what really sold me, and this kind of speaks to some of the features that are built into our frames, what really sold me on our frame is the design elements that we put into it. One of the very first things we talked about when we decided to go the way of the Glock, if you will, was what is it about Glocks that people don't like? You know, how can we try and capture that interest level, that market share of those people out there that have an aversion to Glocks? Well, the very first thing that comes to mind is the grip. People don't like the grip angle on the Glock.
Yeah.
So we've actually adapted a 1911 grip angle into our frame. And it's kind of comical to see the reaction you get out of people, especially the 1911 fans who, when you tell them, oh, it's a Glock compatible frame, and they kind of stick their nose up at you like, oh, it's not 1911. But then they hold it in their hand, and they're like, wow, it's actually really comfortable. Oh, it's really easy to bring the sights up and get a good sight picture real quick. Yeah, it's because it's got a 1911 grip ankle. Oh, and it's got an extended beaver tail. Oh, and it's got a double undercut under the trigger guard. Oh, it's got a full-length pick rail on the front end. It's just a single slot. You know what I mean? So there's more adaptability with lights and lasers and things like that. So there's a lot of key features. And this also speaks to the guy who, why Polymer 80, why, one of your Glock compatible frames.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a lot of features that are built into our frame that people spend a lot of money to have done after the fact.
Yeah.
There's guys that buy frames and they send them out to custom stipple shops and they chop up the frame. They put really nice work into it, but it's usually going to run them anywhere from $150 to $250, $300 just to get that work done.
Yeah, on the cheap end,
you
from
get
what I've
that
seen.
right out of the box. Yeah, for $150 with our frame.
Yeah, this all makes me very happy because what you've described are all the 1911 characteristics about this. And now when I'm staring at Mark, I'm thinking, yeah, buddy, you're the guy that doesn't like 1911s, but you love this thing. So you're a closet 1911 junkie, Mark.
I joke a lot about the 1911 and I bust chops about the 1911, but I really do have a special place in my heart for them. It's just, I've never had one that I could find that was as reliable as a used $300 Glock.
Sure. Yeah.
And if that's the case, I'm never going to trust my life to one.
Well, and what Dan's describing here is it's the best of both worlds, really. And I think about what Tiffany Johnson said on the episode that the ladies did, where, she's a 1911, fan also for the same reasons. There's a lot of elegance to it and it's hard to debate the ergonomics, but a 1911 is just not the ideal carry gun in the year 2018. It's got sharp, angles and edges and it's high maintenance and et cetera. But, y'all have taken, the ergonomics and the features that people want in that, and you've put it in a package that is superior. And I think that's really cool. Dan, let me ask you a couple questions because we're kind of bearing down on the craziness. We're bearing down on the end of the second segment, which hurts me. And I'll say right now, I'd love to have you back on. I think we could talk about this again. And I really believe that this conversation that we're having right now today is going to inspire our listeners to ask more questions, which is cool. But we have listener questions. Do you mind if we ask you some of those? And then before we get off, I really want you to have a chance to tell us about anything new and exciting that you guys are bringing to market soon that our listeners should be, watching out for.
Yeah, absolutely. Please fire away with any questions.
Okay.
We're more than happy.
Well, we can do these as kind of a rapid fire, or you can take as much time as you want. If we go into overtime, that's fine. Our listeners are used to us not observing our schedule. So
we do what we want.
We do what we want. There's a pause button on your phone, people. You can use it for a reason. So first question from one of our listeners was, is Polymer 80, are you guys going to expand past the Glock pattern platform and into others such as the Smith & Wesson M&P or, I don't know, the H&K patterns and so forth?
P320.
Yeah, the P320. That's a good one. Hadn't even thought about that, but yeah. Make one that doesn't fire when you drop it. So, well,
the short answer to that would be yes.
Okay.
But I cannot divulge much beyond that.
Okay. Can you tease them with a time frame? Would they see anything new and innovative in the next year or two, or is that even secret?
We're hoping for 2019.
Okay, fair enough. Well, there you go. You heard it first here. 2019, the year 2019. Okay. Someone asked a question. There's a little bit of snark in this, and I apologize, but I think from getting to know you now, I think you'll take it in stride. Someone asked, when are you guys going to come out with a kit that is cheaper than me just buying a Glock? What can you say to that person?
That's a great question. And I think people that are looking for that are going at it from the wrong perspective. You have to understand, like we just talked about, the features and benefits that are built into our frame are something that most folks are going to pay premium for after they buy their, say, Glock 19. Let's just throw a scenario out there. Let's say go down to your local gun shop and you pick up a Gen 3 Glock 19. And good gun, very reliable, shoots well, easy to disassemble, easy to clean. And you want to have it customized. So you send the frame off, which requires you to actually, technically, by law, do a transfer because you're sending an FFL item to somebody else. You have to transfer it to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to run you, like I said, anywhere from $150 to maybe upwards of $300, depending on the place you're sending it to and the work you're having done. So now your $450 Glock is now a $750 Glock, let's just say. And then on top of that, you decide one day, hey man, I want to get one of them sharp RMR slides. Those are pretty hot. Those are popular now. So you go out and you find yourself an RMR slide, and let's say you find a good deal on it, you get it for $200. Now you're up to $950, and then you eventually drop a trigger in it, and you eventually drop a magwell on there and custom barrel. Before you know it, you've got well over $1,000 into your gun. Mm-hmm. Whereas you can come to Polymer 80 and essentially get all of the components you need to build a complete pistol, and you're talking anywhere between $700 and $800.
The first time,
the features right. Of what you need. Yeah, the first time.
Yeah, you don't have a pile of stock parts laying around that you're not going to use for anything because you started here.
And you build it specific to your needs rather than what somebody tells you to by opening up a box and just getting what you get.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point.
And then you're not stuck with a stock OEM slide that you're probably never going to put on another gun. You're not stuck sitting around with a stock OEM barrel that you're probably never going to stick in another gun. You've got all custom components and accessories. So for the guy who is looking at Polymer 80 as the option of the cheaper Glock, mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that's not what its intent is, and that's not what it's designed to be. It's designed to be an upgraded option in mind. Yeah. And, on the low end, yeah, absolutely. You could buy our frame, and you could probably find a really good deal somewhere through a variety of dealer networks out there for a complete, frame parts kit and a complete slide assembly, and probably walk away pretty close to what you would pay for a OEM Glock. But again, it's more about the ability to have that customization and build your own gun, have something unique to you that really nobody else has.
I'll say this, and it might be something that a listener, I'm sure this is not like I'm, giving something earth shattering that nobody's thought of before, but it just occurred to me that I have recently put together I took one of my 4th gen Glock 19s and I bought an aftermarket slide, RMR, different barrel, et cetera, and I've got a pretty slick little gun. But you mentioned having that stock Glock slide lying around in your safe or in your parts bin or whatever. Why wouldn't I just turn around and buy a Polymer 80 lower, frame, mill it out, put it together, and then drop my factory slide on it? And now I've got 2 guns. Or maybe I take my super duper aftermarket slide and throw it on the Polymer 80. And, anyway, it seems like a great way to take advantage of stuff that you already got. If you've already built, your quote dream gun, you've probably got parts laying around, buy a Polymer 80 frame, build your second dream gun. Yeah.
You just need to make sure you're doing compatible gens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in the instance that you just said, your Gen 4 slide won't fit on the Polymer 80 Gen 3 lower.
Well, that's true. I'm stupid, so that wouldn't work. Well, anyway, if you're smarter than me and you started,
all the more reason to buy a Polymer 80 slide and barrel.
Hey,
don't ask me how I know.
Yeah, well, I might be the guy that just this past week was kind of messing around. I stuck a Gen 3 recoil spring assembly in my Gen 4 slide and wondered why it poked out the front. It took me all of 2 seconds to look at it and go, idiot. But yeah, anyway, all right. Enough of me begging for forgiveness and confessing my sins to our audience. Now that's really a good point that it's an upgrade. And Mark pointed out earlier, he said, this is not something that you're going to buy and slap stock Glock components in. Could you do it and have something cheaper? Sure, you could, but why would you do that? So completely agree with that. Okay. Another listener question. We have a listener. We're going to call him Lark Mancaster from New Hampshire. He wants to know who makes the best holster.
Sounds like a smart guy.
He does sound like a smart guy. Yeah, Lark Mancaster wants to know. That sounds like a That sounds like an adult movie name. I mean, that's like the worst name I could have come up with. But yeah, play a little bit of brown cow in the background now. You know, a little bit of '70s disco music while we introduce Lark Mancaster. But he's a man of action. He wants to know who makes the best holster for the P80, and this sounds like a really self-serving question, Lark.
Yeah, he's that's kind of a tough one to address. How do I tackle that one?
I don't know. I mean, I've seen some really cool stuff from.
I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I've seen some really cool holsters from Blackhawk. You know, I mean,
oh boy,
a nice Serpa for the P80 would be phenomenal. Maybe a Slurpa. Maybe a nylon taco holster from Uncle Mike's.
I'll say this from personal experience and personal just appreciation in that Squared Away Customs is a very good holster option for the Polymer 80 frames, and not just the compact frame, but our full size frame as well as our, I believe, our subcompact frame.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I say that because I use a Squared Away Customs holster as my EDC holster. I tend to carry appendix, and at first I was, for those of you guys out there that are thinking I'm crazy, I was always I'm a right hand draw kind of guy, so I always carried outside waistband right hand side, and I took the dive into the appendix carry world and have come to love it. It's the draw to me seems actually quicker, based on practice and muscle memory development, and it's really a comfortable holster to carry in the appendix position. It's not digging into you or anything like that. So I have two different Squared Away Customs holsters that I carry. I've got a mag carrier that's really well built. And they were actually out of all the holster companies that are listed on our page, on our website, polymer80.com, they were one of the first ones, if not the first one, that actually jumped on board and took the bull by the horns to get holsters manufactured and developed for us. So
that's awesome.
They're a great option, and you can find them direct. You can buy direct from them, or you can find them through their dealer network as well.
Man, Mark, you couldn't have bought better advertising than that right there. I guess if you need Lark's contact information, let me know and I'll email it to you after the show. I'll put him together with you. It's his email address looks similar.
But the story goes, I mean, 2 years ago, NRA, I meet the P80 team and we hit it off good and had a dinner and I was all about the product and really excited about the product. So I just jumped in early when it was the PF940C was had launched already, but I was like, well, somebody needs to make holsters for this.
No, I mean, so and all joking aside, y'all make some really cool stuff.
Made. Yeah. I had some custom molds made that only I had, and we jumped on it. And now, I mean, legit Polymer 80 holsters are, without exaggeration, 30% of our business.
Well, they're part of your quick ship. And I mean, all joking aside, really, I mean, it was fun to have some amusement at your expense there and you took it like a champ. But Lark looks a lot like you, by the way. It's kind of like, I don't know if
funny.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you remember the TV show in the 80s, Knight Rider, and when they introduced Evil Michael Knight, he had a goatee. Mark and Lark are kind of like that. So anyway, God, I've gone down a rabbit hole that I can't recover from. Now, but you guys, your Polymer 80 frames or holsters, are quick shape items too, which is pretty slick. So you cut straight to the front of the line by doing that. And are y'all still doing any sort of a combo on the holsters and the Polymer 80 frames, or is that
so? Yeah, with the popularity of the holsters, we added the frames too. So yes, we do the frames are map priced at $149. So there's no discounting that.
Okay.
But what we do is if you buy a frame from us, then you get the holster for $20. So that's pretty significant. Normally the holster is $59.99. So
okay,
it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, very good deal. All right. Well, Dan, as promised, I definitely want to give you a chance to talk about anything new that's coming out. So is there anything that you would like to share with our listeners as far as things that they might want to be looking for on the horizon?
Yeah, just to lead up to that, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention some of the other products we've kind of briefly touched on. We realized back after we released the PF940C compact frame that we could be doing a whole lot more for the customer with respect to kind of creating that one-stop shop. So we decided to get into the slide business, the barrel business. So as it is now, we offer slides. There's 3 different variants for both the Glock 19 and Glock 17. They are Gen 3 slides. They come in a black, flat dark earth, or a gray finish. We have barrels available. There's 9 different variants for a Glock 19 or a Glock 17. Everything from a standard barrel to a fluted to threaded fluted. We make custom triggers. We make anodized aluminum mag wells. We make slide parts kits. And leading up to that, new product releases, hopefully here in the near term, we'll be releasing a complete frame parts kit, which will be everything you need to build out your Glock 17 or Glock 19 frame. That being said, one of the concepts that we have in mind is to develop what we call a BBS kit, which stands for the Buy Build Shoot Kit.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of a neat idea that was developed a few years back. We ran it for a period of time as a rifle kit. We've since discontinued that with the rifle side of things, but we're hoping to revamp that and bring it back into play on the pistol side. So essentially what you'd be getting in a BBS kit would be the complete package. You'd get the 80% frame, and you can choose you'll be able to choose between a Glock 17 model or compatible frame, a Glock 19 compatible frame, or the 26 compatible frame. Mm-hmm. And through those 3 frames, there's a myriad of color options. There's black, flat dark earth, OD green, kind of a light gray tone color. There's cobalt, which is a dark gray color. It's a really nice metallic style gray color. Robin egg blue for the ladies out there. It's akin to Tiffany blue.
Oh, yeah.
Or white. So just between the 3 frames, you got a multitude of color options, and then you'll be able to select your slide. You'll be able to select your barrel type. You'll be able to select your frame parts kit if you want to throw an upgraded aluminum trigger in there with 5 different options. It'll come with a set of sights. And there'll be a variety of different options for sights. It'll come with a magazine, and in all likelihood, it'll come with a paper target as well. So essentially what you'd be buying is a complete build kit. The only thing you got to do is go out and get ammo.
That's cool. That's turnkey. Yeah.
We hope to have that price cheaper than what you would pay if you were to buy everything separately. So that way, if you do want to do that one-stop shop, you can.
Well,
so that's up and coming, probably late fall, early winter, I would imagine. One of the products that we are getting ready to start pre-selling to our dealer network this month, hopefully, is a brand new frame. It's kind of our answer to the Glock 19X. If everybody recalls, Glock launched that early this year.
Yeah.
And it's basically a 19 grip with a 17 length slide on it. And we immediately saw the reaction in the industry with all the customers saying, you guys did it backwards. It should have they had the 17 length grip,
exactly
19 length slide.
Yeah,
I apologize about that. And again, everybody said you did it backwards. It should have the concealability of a 19, but the length of a 17. So
absolutely.
Said we can do that. So we're coming out with a brand new pistol frame. It's going to be the PF940CL, which stands for Compact Long Slide. And like I got backwards earlier, ours will have the 19 length grip with the 17 length slide barrel assembly on it.
You guys will sell every one of those.
And again, that'll be available in both. Well, I certainly hope so. But it'll be available in both the Polymer 80 standard texture option as well as the Ready Mod version for those that want to custom stipple it, and as well as in any of the variety of color options that we offer.
That's awesome.
And again, it'll accept all Gen 3 frame parts kits with a Glock 17 slide assembly.
That's going to be a monster seller.
Yeah, I think, that absolutely is going to sell. I see that all the time, people wanting to send their 17 out and having the frame chopped and all that stuff. And once again, it's turnkey. You don't have to go do plastic surgery on your gun. You've got it. Dan, let me ask, you mentioned the white frame. I know, and I've seen plenty of the Stormtrooper builds, with the black and the white, and those things look really cool. But will your frames, if somebody were to buy that white, could they take it and dye it a color that they wanted, or does the polymer not accept dye?
I don't know how well that would turn out. It's not like the Magpul P-Mags that they came out with a while back, where you could drop them in a die and kind of create your own custom camo or something like that.
Okay.
It's a very stark, brilliant white color, which some people don't really have an affinity towards, and other people are all about it. You know, they want to throw a titanium nitride gold barrel on it with a gold magwell and kind of, you know, make for better lack of terms, a Gucci gun out of it. But some people like it, and, you know, as long as the customers ask for it, we're going to do what we can to deliver it.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I think the variety of colors there is pretty neat, and the Tiffany blue or the robin's egg blue is absolutely super popular among the female shooters. So, you know, especially for the men in the audience that are listening, and you know, if your wives are sitting there going, I'd like it, but it's ugly, you know, hey, there's an option right there. You don't have to send it out and have it Cerakoted and all that other stuff. You can buy one turnkey that's got the right color blue. So very cool.
Yeah. And then last but not least, I hope I don't get too much trouble for talking about this one, but we've been asked for quite some time, whenever we're coming out with a 45, when are you going to do the Glock 21 compatible frame? And I think it's safe to say that later this summer, hopefully early fall, we'll be beginning the pre-sale process for a Glock 21 compatible frame. So customers will be able to build a 45 cal or even a Glock 20 variant, 10 millimeter.
Yeah. There you go. All right. I was going to ask, but that's it right there. I mean, 45 owners need to have a hero too. So, you know, the 10 mil is perfect for that. That's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
I will
down power.
I will sign up for that. I had a Glock 20 and I've got a Glock 21 and I had a Glock 20 and, you know, granted same size gun, but the additional oomph of that angry 10 millimeter with my short little Shrek fingers was a little bit too much, and I couldn't get a grip on it. And I thought, you know, what it sounds like, you know, if it's typical with everything else that you guys make with that better grip angle and everything else, I think that would solve my 10 millimeter Glock platform dilemma and give me something that fit my little Cabbage Patch hands. So that's awesome. I can't wait. Sign me up for that one. I will take one of them or two, maybe two.
Robin's egg.
Will do.
And Robin's egg blue. Yeah. And white.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. No, I'm jazzed about that for sure. That's awesome. And the 45, yeah, I know Mark's going to beat down the door to get the 45. So no, not going to do it. Shaking his head no. This is why I wish we were on YouTube. They could see the look of enthusiasm that's not on your face right now.
I just we don't need to go the 9 millimeter versus 45 rabbit hole tonight, but I have my reasons.
Oh, man, well, we can have Dan come back and we can do that one. We can do a 9 mil versus 45 slugfest, and he can be the judge, the impartial judge. I don't know. I'd be on the same side.
Yeah,
as
we'll
you,
do
though.
that when we release that frame.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be great. That's really cool, especially anybody that, you know, carries a Glock 21 for duty purposes, you know, law enforcement that wants something similar that they can play with off the clock. That would be a fantastic opportunity for them even. So that's really slick.
Yeah. Well, I apologize. I forgot. Again, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about this. One of the things we've decided to do, and it's been in production development for a while, and it's actually just started to ship to dealers, is serialized frames. We recognized that there was a portion of the market that, like we talked about earlier, didn't really care one way or another about 80%ers.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided to develop the same exact frame designs, only in serialized complete frames. So those are shipping now. The compact version is shipping now. It's called the PFC9. The PFS9, which is the full-size Glock 17 compatible variant, will hopefully start shipping by the end of the month. And like I said, it's basically the same exact frame. The only difference is it doesn't come with a jig. It doesn't come with any tooling, because you don't have to do any work to it. You would buy it just like you would buy any other firearm with respect to doing the FFL transfer, and it's ready to go out of the box. You drop parts in it, you're good to go.
Well, there you go, folks. You got a company right here that's listening to their customers and offering what they want, including a thing that's not an 80% lower. So that's a Polymer 100.
We've been teasing about that a little bit.
It's really too far into this episode.
It's go with that, but
it's actually too late, even at night, for that joke to be funny. That fizzled completely.
I was laughing, but I was muted. So.
Well, that joke came from Lark Mancaster in New Hampshire. Yeah. All right. Well, Dan, it's really impossible for me to believe that we're as deep into this as we are in the episode, but I want to be respectful of your time, and again, anytime you want to come back onto the show, feel free. As you guys get closer to releasing these products, especially the stuff in 2019, the year of mystery that we couldn't really talk about, come back, man. We'd love to have you on. And if David and Lauren wanted to join you or vice versa, them come on, whatever, the door's open. I know I and Mark would love to have you on. I think our listeners would too. So please come back and chat with us. I hope you enjoyed it tonight. I did. Mark, this was fun. Thanks for setting this up, man.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like you said, it's one of those companies that listens to their customers, takes care of their customers, and they bring to market what customers are asking for, unlike most every other firearm manufacturer out there.
This might be why a West Side Story standoff between those two companies, them and Glock, happens, because y'all are listening, and Glock's like, yes, we're going to do a Gen 6, and it has, I don't know, like a mag release on both sides of the frame or something. It's like, oh wow, yay. Big deal.
Built-in brass knuckles.
Right. Yeah.
Gen 6.
Right. Well, no, it's really cool that y'all have done what you're doing for the shooting industry and the consumer, Dan. So, really awesome. I've enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun getting to know you tonight and getting to know more about the company. I hope that any of our listeners that were on the fence about this thing and not sure if they wanted to embark on an 80% lower build, they head over to your website and they do that. Speaking of, Dan, how can people connect with you and Polymer 80 after the show if they wanted to, especially the social media outlets that you all mentioned?
Great question. The best way to get in touch with us is just check out our website, polymer80.com. Full listing of all our product line, as well as information on how to contact our support team if you do hopefully become a customer. And on top of that, we have pages dedicated to our dealers to where they can find our products, as well as, like we talked about, holster manufacturers. And, to you guys, thank you for the opportunity to be here and to talk about our product line and our company. It's a great opportunity for us. And to all the customers that are out there, whether you're a current customer or hopefully a future customer, thank you for your support, because Polymer 80 wouldn't be what it is today without you guys. And so to all of you out there listening, thank you very much from all of us at Polymer 80.
Very cool. Yeah, you don't hear companies do that very often. So folks, please head over to polymer80.com, check out what they've got to offer. Head over to squaredawaycustoms.com and look at the Mark, you guys are a full stocking dealer for Polymer 80 frames and such, right? And you've got the holsters, they're quick ship, and the combo deal. Mark, I probably just ruined it, but how can people connect with you and Squared Away Customs to get started on this journey?
Yeah, as always, you can go to squaredawaycustoms.com, or you can email info@squaredawaycustoms.com if you have any questions at all. This is another great show. I knew it would be a good one, so I'm happy to have you on here, Dan.
Yeah, very, very, very awesome, Dan, especially in short notice. And I know that looking at y'all's website, if they go there and they want to check you out on Facebook and Instagram and stuff, y'all have got all the links right there for social media, and it's really cool, especially Instagram. Go just look for the hashtag Polymer 80, and you're going to find other people's builds based off of this. And you talk about a wish book that'll give you ideas on what you could do to build your own. It's really cool. It's gonna, if you're married and your spouse looks at the checkbook, they're gonna hate you for this, but go do it, because it's gonna give you a lot of good ideas and stuff to build.
I like using hashtag not a Glock.
Not a Glock? Is that a thing? That's awesome. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna check it out. All right. Yeah, that's fun. It's probably gonna show me a high point or something, but whatever. It's too late for high point jokes. This is going poorly. I'm gonna stop.
Never too late for high point jokes.
It's not too high. All right. Well, want to give a shout out to one of our listeners, American Gunner on Instagram. Brother, we want to thank you for listening. We appreciate you and definitely appreciate you sharing us out on social media and getting all your friends to listen in. One of these days, we're gonna have to do some cool things, giveaways on social media for folks that spread the word about Shooters Nation to others. Along those lines, I want to thank all of our patrons who directly support the show and make future episodes possible. If you want to support the show, you don't have to, but we certainly appreciate it. You can do that by heading over to shootersnation.com and looking for the donate link. Mark is blinding me in my camera with that. What is that? That is an insanely bright light. Is that new Surefire thing? We'll talk about that in a minute. That's awesome. It's like as bright as the sun. I'm now distracted. We want to hear from you guys in the audience. Head over to shootersnation.com, look for the idea link or look for the feedback link. Tell us who you want us to interview and what subjects you want us to cover in the weeks ahead. In particular, we're going to do a listener mailbag episode soon. So send those questions to us. We want to know what you want us to talk about. While you're over there at shootersnation.com, just connect with us, sign up for our Mail Blast mailing list. Things coming up. I have had some recent experiences getting deeper into the civilian medical world. I'm going to do a class at the end of July. It's an 8-hour pre-hospital trauma life support class, which is going to be really cool. It's Stop the Bleeding plus some, and I can't wait to do that. I'll be glad to come back and give you guys a little bit of an after action report on that one. The listener mailbag episode we just mentioned. And we've also got an exciting episode coming up talking about urban survival skills. And I think where that really plays in is if you're in an area that has bad weather, seasonally bad weather, tornadoes, hurricanes, snow, so much depressing snow like they have in New Hampshire all year long. It's probably snowing tomorrow in New Hampshire, isn't it, Mark? It's really not. It's not that bad.
It's not.
It's not that bad? Okay. Well, that makes me feel better. I feel sorry for you if it's snowing again tomorrow. Anyway, all those things come back and we'll do an urban survival skills episode, and that'll be fun. But yeah, definitely give us ideas, folks. If you want us to talk about it, we want to talk about it. Thanks again, Dan, for coming on. Thanks for putting up with us. Hope you had fun. Hope you'll come back. Really appreciate the opportunity to get to know you and Polymer 80 a little bit better. Folks, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you guys again soon. Until then, be safe out there.
The preceding segment was a production of the Shooters Nation podcast. Visit us online at shootersnation.com.